Welcome to another episode of World of Tanks with Ungainly Titan. And in this particular episode I want to talk about the fine art of YoLo. What's YoLo, says you? Well, you only live once. It's an acronym. It's generally considered to be a bad thing, and it's generally referred to where people drive their tanks recklessly into situations that are, shall we say, unwise at the best of times and unprofitable in many cases. So we're going to see several examples of YoLo in this video, some good, some bad. This is a bad example in the sense that he came over the top to kill me and he didn't kill me. And I'm going to return the favour in a few moments by doing exactly the same thing on the other side. However, so it's generally considered a bad thing because in a previous video there I was scouting on Siegfried Line and active scouting, and I was saying that the mere presence of tanks sometimes, the fact that the enemy knows a tank is there or is out there, and they may see it occasionally, even though it's not doing anything in terms of effective, in terms of shooting them or anything like that, is going to cause issues for the enemy team. They know it's out there, they've got to take into account its existence in their strategies, they've got to avoid presenting it with an easy shot. So, a tank that's active, even if it's not putting in any kind of effective fire, is still a useful teammate. It's spotting tanks, it's assisting its allies, and it's providing an extra mental strain on the enemy. Now, one of the more common areas where you get YoLo is quite a lot at the very start of a game. Light tanks in particular just charge into the middle of the enemy. You don't need to do it. You can do stuff like this. I spotted 2 tanks there, and by the time I spotted 4, 5, and by the time they had me targeted, I was out of range. Now later on in the same game, the fight settled down into a fight on 2 corridors. Now there are some enemy tanks up in the central area, but you have the western corridor and you have the eastern corridor. Now, I felt I couldn't intervene in the western corridor because you were spotted on your approach. I was spotted by the tank destroyers in the centre, and I would also be approaching the tanks that I was coming up behind, so they could shoot me as I was arriving and they'd shoot me as I was leaving. In this case, I would be able to arrive behind the tanks as a complete surprise, as long as there was nobody at the corner, which there wasn't. So the idea was you drive in, you drive behind him, you make him look back, because once they turn, most people will turn the camera to look behind them and they won't lock the turret. They won't think you're doing it, so they'll look back and the whole turret and gun will turn. And this will give an opportunity for my allies to engage them while this is going on. Now, that last tank was a surprise. A complete and utter surprise. I did not expect to find the tank that far up the passage. But I got away with it. And even if I didn't, I think it would have been worth it because it broke the deadlock decisively. Didn't win us the game because we lost on the other side. But that happens. Nobody got back to reset the cap in time. I was trying, but I was coming from the furthest corner of the map. Here I am driving down the valley in cliff, and nobody's been spotted except that DW2 until I come to the corner, and nobody's been spotted on my right. So I felt it was well worth it to come out here to get behind the buildings, take an advanced position, even though I have little or no support behind me. So it's a bit of a YoLo, but it's not. It's more calculated. I'm not sure if you describe it as YoLo, but it's the kind of thing that you can get away with. It's the kind of thing you can calculate. There was method to my madness. It wasn't a totally insane move. Now, if I was bottom tier, yeah, chance of surviving, if I had met top tier tanks, even in the locations I met them, it wouldn't have been that good. So, in general, I would say that it is generally better to keep your gun in the game, your tank alive, for as long as possible, because that is the most help to your teammates. Like I said earlier, and in other videos, simply existing, simply being there, being available, being visible, is an extra factor that the enemy have to constantly calculate, even if your gun is ineffective at the location you're in. there's always the chance that somebody will move to a location where you will be able to make your gun more effectively, or that you will get the opportunity later on to move. So you generally should not YOLO unless you think you can get away with it. And that requires a fairly careful assessment, and it really requires an exit strategy. You need to figure out what it is you're doing, what it is you want to achieve, and how you're going to get in, how you're going to get out, and stick with it. You also often get this sort of thing in the battlefield. Now, I don't think that was a deliberate YOLO. Unlike the first two you saw at the very beginning, they deliberately came over the top to come after me. I think that was a misreading of the situation. Either he was hoping by dashing in that he'd draw the rest of his teammates in with him, and didn't realise there was 5 tanks behind us, and that his teammates weren't going to come in because they knew that. Or he had misread the situation in some fundamental way. It reminds me of the kind of stuff that I did at the beginning when I was learning the game, particularly when I had gotten to the point where I thought I knew what I was doing. I knew what I was doing, but I was still making the mistake of believing that other people were going to assess the tactical situation in the same way that I did, and by and large they don't. It's the one clear lesson you can take out of World of Tanks is people do not view it even remotely the same way that you're viewing it. This is your typical start a battle, YOLO run through the middle. Complete waste of time. Now, yes, he has pulled 3 tanks back. There's myself, there's the light tank, and that tank destroyer there to my right is going to come off to chase him down. But other than that, he's achieving nothing. He will have a lot of spotter ribbons by the end of this exercise, because he'll have spotted quite a few tanks. But he's not spotted them at a time when his allies are able to shoot any of them, or in locations where his allies can shoot those tanks. So by and large, he's thrown his tank away for no good purpose whatsoever. And in this example, we're going to see another example of the same thing. Very early in the game, just after the first minute, this self-lowering Panther is just going to drive straight over the top, full health, drive down as far the field as he can get, and die. And I'm not sure if he even did any damage, much less got assisted damage. Now, he got a lot of spots. He probably spotted everybody across the back of the map. But what good does it do? Here we're going to see another couple of examples of, I think, dubious value. This is a good spotting location, and if you have support behind you in the field and you pop up, you light up tanks north or south of the road. Plus, you get very good fire into the town and anybody who parks at the end of the street. It is important to peek up over the road in order to keep the people further back lit up so that the tanks supporting you can have something to shoot at. I get a little distracted here by the targets down at the end of the street, so I probably don't do enough popping up that I should have done. Now, this light tank comes in after me. He has been counting my shots. He knows that I'm out of ammunition, and he just storms in, puts a round into me, but I get my clip reloaded, and I'm going to start shooting back. I don't think he took any hit from allied tanks, but he's dead. This is the big thing. He's dead at a point where his team had less tanks than mine. So instead of being, what was that? We had 6 kills. They had 4 kills. It would have been 7 kills to 4 kills. So we're 3 tanks up. And then a second tank is down here, and he does exactly the same thing. Now, he achieves his objective in that he kills my tank. But was it worth the cost to his tank? Would he have been better off just poking the ridgeline and letting the tanks behind take the shots? I think he might. He could always come over the top later on, or wait for me to come over the top against him. It again is throwing the tank away and not achieving a whole lot. Like, yes, he did kill the tank, but two for the price of 1, 2 tanks to kill mine. That was an expensive exchange. So I think what you pick up here is that mostly it's not going to work and it's not a good idea. But sometimes you got to try it because there's nothing else you can do. Here we're facing a situation where I was hoping actually to save the tank destroyer. I reckon at the beginning of the run, the medium tank up north was gone. But I was hoping it'd last a little bit longer and that I could save the tank destroyer, because I reckon it was the only chance in the game. Tier 8 light tank versus Tier 9 tanks. It's not exactly something I want to do too often. But I managed to kill 3 tanks. And then of course I screw it up. So it wasn't the YoLo run here that was the problem. It was the follow-up. I should, looking at it in hindsight, gone further south. Completely broken contacts, passed around the back of the artillery, or close to the artillery's position, gone around the back of the cap circle, and come back from the other side from cover. By coming up too far north, I get spotted by that tank destroyer. I then compound the error by going around north of this building, so I get spotted by his comrades coming around the other side, and there's just no getting away from it now. So the first YoLo was correct, the second YoLo was accidental. I didn't mean to do it, but that's what it turned out to be, and it destroyed my tank and it cost me. This is a one that was a botched execution, because when I went in, I had not mapped out clearly in my head what way was I going out. The idea was to distract this guy, to prevent him from getting down onto the flank of the 2 lads that are holding up that mess of tanks on the hill there beside me. And I think as an idea it wasn't a bad idea, because if he got down there early enough, then that position would collapse before those heavy tanks way over there on the western side of the map would get in a position to do anything useful. It's a very long route. However, that last right turn where I was stuck on the hill and then got trapped in front of the IS-2 was a mistake. I should have come up here earlier. Certainly on the second pass, if not on the first pass. And I would have achieved the same thing. And I would have done it with a lot less damage done to my tank, so that I could afford to be, shall we say, more active later in the game. I managed to survive and I was still active and I put out quite a bit of damage, and we actually managed to win. But I think the team would have been better off if I had a few more hit points, could have taken a more active role later on in the game. So yes, judicious use of a YoLo run can pay off, but not that often, and you really need to ask yourself what it is you want to achieve, how you're going to get in, how you're going to get out, and minimize your exposure to the multiple enemy guns that you will invariably come across. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it interesting. If you did, please press like. And if you haven't already done so, please give the channel a subscription, and I will catch you all again soon.